Hello and welcome to Countdown to Power with me, Graeme Pryce. It's amazing how many Conservative MPs there are with strangely relevant names, isn't it? You've got Peter Bone, infamous sex pest, Kemi Bad Enoch, first racist equalities minister. Jeremy Hunt springs to mind, obviously, as does Crispin Blunt. Someone pointed out in the comments section the other day how his name could almost be a spoonerism. James Cleverly seems spectacularly poorly named, doesn't he? Poor guy's got the most ironic moniker since Thomas Crapper. Jimmy Dimley took office with a majority of over 24,000 in May of 2015. He's done 4 separate positions under 5 different prime ministers and he's been shite at all of them. Well, let's be charitable. His first position was Minister without Portfolio, which is basically Secretary of State for fuck all, so I don't know how you can go wrong with that one. Seems to do alright there. He's not quite as unsettling as Kemi Badenoch or as garishly grotesque as Suella Braverman. But he's not particularly pleasant either. He's as much of a Tory twat as any of them. So here's 5 of what I think are some of the worst things he's done and said. Feel free to add your own in the comments, but watch this first. Just a quick interjection, won't take long, will only keep you a moment. YouTube takes a lot more notice of videos that are getting comments, likes and new subscribers and being watched right the way through. So if you could do one of the first 3 things and maybe watch a little bit longer than you might have otherwise, it would really help the channel loads. And it cheers me uploads too. Double win. Thank you. James Cleverly has a pretty long back history of putting his faith in the ludicrous, the larcenous and the loathsome. I mean, he served under Ballbag Johnson for quite a while, so that says a lot about his integrity, doesn't it? He had to go and become a leader himself in 2019, which just goes to show how phenomenally deluded he actually is. But in 2022, he stood aside and supported Liz Truss, his mate. We all know how that ended, and I can't be bothered thinking of another lettuce-based pun just yet. But before it became obvious that Lizzie's premiership was wilting, she gave James Cleverly the position of Foreign Secretary. Now, he went on to be spectacularly crap at that, and he embarrassed our nation repeatedly, but that's not the point we're making here. Obviously, being in a cabinet position, he was questioned quite a lot about the utter failure and disgrace of Liz Truss's premiership. He was asked about it by Kay Bailey in late 2022 on Sky News, and he gave an answer that's just so utterly stupid, so unashamedly ridiculous that it's actually quite impressive. Apparently, everything that went wrong with Liz Truss's mini-budget, it was all just down to Labour's negative narrative about it. Honestly. Nadine Dorries couldn't make that one up. Jesus. Unless the Tories seriously shit the bed and do another pointless reshuffle, or select an even right-wingier bastard than Sunak to lead them into the election, it looks pretty likely that AET Cooper will be the next Home Secretary, and she'll probably be the first decent and competent one we've had for a decade or more. Responding to Mr Cleverly's rant when the court judged the Rwanda plan unlawful, AET Cooper reminded him and us of the time that it was revealed in leaked messages that Jimmy Dimley had called the Rwanda plan batshit crazy. He never actually denied it, and he hasn't done so since, but he's tried all the usual Tory semantic bullshit. He's tried, I may have said it but it was taken out of context, or the Sunak defence, I can't recall saying it. But in what seems to be a rather amusing pattern that's developing with him, he's also said it was Labour activists that leaked it and they tried to twist his words. Hasn't denied saying it though. Which leads us nicely onto what I like to call the James Cleverly shithole saga. James made one of his largest, most ludicrous and blatantly dishonest gaffes not long after he'd become Home Secretary, when he got a little over rambunctious during Prime Minister's questions. In November last year, Alex Cunningham, Labour MP for Stockton North, got up and asked Rishi Sunak why 34% of children living in his constituency were still living in poverty. The answer was the usual bullshit from Sunak, as you'd expect. But Mr Not So Cleverly seemed to have entirely forgotten where he was and who he was, and in response he shouted, "Because it's a shithole!" Despite this being very clearly the obvious words he'd said, recorded on multiple microphones, going out live to the UK's main news channels and in front of over 700 people, Mr Cleverly later denied his indecent utterance. Now that's fucking Tory behaviour if I ever saw an example of it. Lying bastard. Later, when confronted with the pretty irrefutable evidence of what he'd said, Jimmy Dimley then tried to say he hadn't actually called Stockton North a shithole. What he'd shouted was, "'Cause you're a shit MP," to Alex Cunningham. Because it's absolutely normal behaviour for the Home Secretary to shout abuse at other elected members of the chamber in response to them asking questions about child poverty, isn't it? Obviously. Apparently you don't get to be a Tory unless you're prepared to repeatedly vote for the most vile, backwards, evil shite that the lunatics in the party might manage to bring to the chamber, and also vote against anything and everything that the opposition parties might bring, no matter how good or decent it might be. And James Cleverly is no different in that respect. Let's just have a little look at his voting record. He's voted for a stricter asylum system 23 times, but it's not really a surprise, is it? He's voted for mass surveillance of your online data and activities 3 times, though. Now that's a little bit more sinister, isn't it? He's voted against laws to promote equality 9 times as well. Gets worse, though, obviously. He's consistently voted against lowering the voting age, and he's consistently voted against anything to do with proportional representation or anything to do with improving the way we elect people. In the usual Tory fashion, he's also voted 9 times against paying decent benefits to actual disabled people, and he's voted 26 times to reduce benefits overall. Now, let's just be clear here. James Cleverly, multi-millionaire, has looked at the poorest people in the country, and he's decided that the best way to make life better for them is to make them even poorer. 26 times. Fucking hell. At a Downing Street reception that was well attended by many known journalists, Mr. Cleverly made a spectacularly stupid joke just before Christmas. A joke about spiking women's drinks with Rohypnol. You heard that right. Of course, he was quite seriously questioned about it, as he should have been, and he responded by clarifying that it was just a joke about his wife and how he has to keep her just a little bit sedated to put up with him. I'd imagine the reason she puts up with him is because he's got a wedge of cash thick enough to beat a racehorse to death with. Or maybe she genuinely likes him, he's just a fucking idiot, who knows. But he seemed to genuinely not realise how serious it was that the Home Secretary had made a joke about using date rape drugs to spike women's drinks. He genuinely didn't seem to get it. There was quite a large call for him to resign. I thought it was a resignation issue, but then I wouldn't I? I'd like all the bloody Tories to resign, fuck right off and let the SNP or the Lib Dems be the main opposition. But unfortunately, dreams very rarely come true, and we have to put up with the Conservative Party staining the politics of the UK for the foreseeable future, Mr. Cleverly included. Oh, and Little Rishi said that he considers the matter closed. So, we're not allowed to talk about it anymore now. We don't want Titchy Richie getting sketchy and tetchy about it now, do we? He considers the matter closed. Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. It really does mean a great deal to me. As usual, picking any Tory and finding 5 reasons to call them a twat is a piece of piss, because we've allowed the House of Commons to become a den of sheer twattery, a wretched hive of scum and villainy, so to speak. You'll find a link to James Cleverly's voting record in the description box below, and if you want to help the channel grow, you'll find links to my Patreon, my PayPal, and the Buy Me a Coffee link down there as well. The poll for the Who the Next 5 Reasons video should be about is up on my community page already too. I don't dislike James Cleverly as much as I dislike some of the other Tory bastards, which is a good thing really, because he's got a sizable majority and he only got elected in 2015, so I don't think he's ready to dash off to the Cayman Islands to be reunited with his trust funds just yet. He's not a very nice character, but he's also not a very smart character. The lunatics who advise the Tory party probably collectively hold their breath every time he opens his gob in anticipation of whatever stupid thing he might say next. It's for that reason that he won't be holding up Labour's countdown to power. Well, let's be charitable. His first position was Minister without Fort Polio. Minister without Fort Polio. You dumbass.